Good afternoon and thanks for joining us today. The thing we're going to be covering today is around redaction, and one of the key balancing tricks that policing has to do on a daily basis is being as open and transparent as possible to help maintain the public trust, whilst protecting that very sensitive and personal information that the public entrust the police service with. We're totally reliant on that information to be able to help the public and do our role, and they do trust us with some absolutely incredibly sensitive information. But similarly, we have that battle that we want to be as open and transparent in policing as we can do. Now, redaction is a task used every day in policing, and it rolls across all areas of business, from preparing case files to publishing information as part of publication schemes and freedom of information responses. But also, if you think about recruitment processes where we want to have blind applications where we don't know who the candidate is, we're just assessing the information, redaction could be a way that we hide some of the information on the application form and pass that across that process to make it as fair as possible. But first of all, I think I need to introduce Heather from Adobe, who's going to take us through exactly what we can do with these tools, who can use them, and then we'll actually get into the demonstration in a few seconds. So Heather, what's your role in Adobe and who can use the tools that we're going to be demonstrating today in UK policing?
Yes, no problem. Hello, I'm Heather Kuda. I'm the Senior Customer Success Manager on the Police Digital Service account. That covers all of the UK and Ireland's police forces in full, but I do also work with other police forces around the EMEA region, and I'm also here today with my colleagues Scott Hemmons, who works alongside me in the UK, and Clint Funk, who works in the US, but focuses specifically on public sector and policing. So who can use the product to perform redaction? In the Police Digital Service account, that is any police officer that is part of any of the forces within that region. If you're not from that region, as I know we might have some attendees today that are from other areas of the world, you can perform redaction as long as you have the product called Acrobat Pro DC or Acrobat Pro and any form of version of that. We recommend to work with the newest version of the product possible, not just for compliance reasons, but also to ensure that the UI looks the same when you see the demonstrations and things like that. So that's a little key. And we do also work with a larger part of the government. So in the UK, I work alongside our justice system to be able to kind of help the whole transition of what happens with digital documents, as does Clint and Scott. And we also work in the creative space. So today's focus is really on Acrobat Pro DC, as I mentioned, but there's always room to expand that and think about how we can use our creative tools to help you in a similar way. So thank you for letting me introduce myself. I'm going to be passing to my colleague Clint, who's going to be taking us through the session today to learn a bit more about the tool and how you can make, as I always say, use of the Swiss Army knife you have, not just the corkscrew, which is what most people think it only does.
Thanks, Heather. So Clint, if you could share your screen, we'll pop you on screen, and you're actually demonstrating from a bit of a distance. We do have an international audience to our webinars, and you're over in Chicago today. So Clint, I'll hand over to you.
Well, thank you, David and Heather and everyone attending today. So I'm in Acrobat DC, and as Heather mentioned, I'm Clint Funk. I'm a senior solutions consultant, and I'm based in Chicago. I cover the entire United States, Canada, and some in the UK as well. So the first thing about Acrobat is to go to the tools to get your redaction tool. So when you get here, you can search for redaction if you start typing it, or scroll down, and here it is. And a key thing I want to point out here is if you click on this down arrow, you can go to learn more. And that is going to take you to the page that will tell you everything that you need to know about redaction. So that's always there for you. And not only that, that learn more is there for every tool. So good idea, take a look at some of these tools that might save you some time. If you're not familiar with them, go to learn more. Once we've done that, we get into a document. I'll select redaction over here. I've already added it because it's a tool I use all the time. So it's in my default list of tools. So I'll select redaction. And the first thing I do in redaction is I determine what it is that I want to redact. And before that, I like to go to properties and determine not only what I want to redact, but how I want to redact it. So I'm going to go to the redact and text image properties. And here I have some options. So the default color for redaction is black, and that's what's mostly used, but there may be reasons that you need another color. So if you click on the black square, you can change the colors as well. So I've used a couple down here, red and green. I could add blue or any other color and select those. I've even used white by dragging all my sliders over here. And sometimes I've used this personally. If you remember, if you're old enough to remember the old whiteout that we used to use on typewriters, sometimes I've used white rather than black, depending on what it is. And so you can change the colors depending on, if you have reasons for doing that. We will stick with black as the default. But you do have that option. The next thing that you have an option for is using overlay text. And there's a couple of things that you can do here as well. So you can put in custom text. So I've added PII for personal identifiable information as what I'm going to use, but you could also use redaction codes. Now these are here for the states, the US Privacy Act and the Freedom of Information Act, but you can add your own codes in here and you can edit any of the codes. You could delete these in the US and add your own, edit any of those as well. So you've got that option as well to give a reason about why you're redacting. And that's where a different color might come into play, where you want to use a different color to redact certain things because of certain reasons. Again, all up to you, and you don't have to use any. You can just turn off using overlay text as well. We'll keep it on for this demo. And I'll click OK. And then the next thing is I need to start redacting or selecting things to be redacted. So as I go through this document, let's say, for example, maybe this document, this employee record is going to go to court, and there are some things in here that I may want to remove. So again, I'm based in the States, so one of the things that I'll want to remove is the Social Security number, which would be your NIS number. We use that a lot here in the States, and it's something that we don't want to share, but I'm going to come back to that and say that as we're working with this, perhaps we don't want the address shown. So we'll take out the address by marking that for redaction, like so. Maybe we don't want the personal phone number here. And then scrolling down, let's blow this up a little bit more. Here we've got most Social Security numbers. I'll come back to that. We've got his wife and children. Again, we'll leave that for the time being. Scrolling on down, there's another social number. We're going to come back to that. And perhaps we don't want his signature either. So we can just drag over that. And as you can see, as I put my cursor over here, it shows what I've marked for redaction. And then here's two things that we definitely want to take out. So Social Security card, it's a scan. And then his military release papers, which we refer to as the DD-214. Now I could draw around both of these as one way to do it, or I can go up here and redact pages. So in this case, I'm going to mark the current page for redaction. Say OK. And scroll on down. And that's all we really need to do in this example, but there's a couple of other things that we can do as well. So I'm going to, again, go to the drop-down menu and find and redact. And that's going to bring up another tool. And I can go through this document and delete, redact certain words or phrases. I can do multiple words or phrases. And here's a good example where I want to add words. I have two ways to do this. I can add them individually. So I want to take out his kids. Their names. So I can simply add them that way, but a faster way to do that for a simple document like this, that's really all I need to do. But a lot of documents that you work with are much longer than that. So I could also import a list. And if I import a list, it needs to be saved as a text file, a .txt file. So I can create a long document with a number of people or addresses, cities, you name it, whatever it is, in Word or any other application that you can save as a text file and simply import that document in here. So we've kept it easy here, but if I had a longer document that had a lot of names in it, for example, but not just names, I would create a text file of all those names and then load that. And of course, I can use that on multiple documents as well. So keeping this simple, we'll just go with these three. And as I scroll down there, it selected his wife and his two kids names for me. So if there are more things, I could obviously keep continually doing this with maybe multiple lists as I'm going through long documents. And then I also have patterns. So I can look for phone numbers, I can look for credit card numbers, I can look for social security numbers. In your case, you can change this to your NIS numbers. I'm leaving it as social security because that's what I have for my example. Email addresses and dates. So this is going to look for patterns. We'll select for social security. If I had NIS numbers, that's what we would do as well. So I'm going to search and remove. And there it found one. Found all of these in the document, so I'm going to check all of them and then mark check results for redaction. And there it selected all of those. As I scroll down, there's that other example. Took out the whole page here because that was a scan of the social security number. Here's another one. So this search capability is really useful, using a list of names or a list of anything that you need to redact from the document, or patterns here that might be useful as well. Once I've done all of that, I can go ahead and apply the redactions. Let's get this out. And I'll go ahead and apply it. And now here you have another option as well. Now you can sanitize and remove all hidden information or not. Now, depending, you might want to go ahead and remove all of the information here. I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to show you why here. So continue. So now those things are forever gone. I can go ahead and save this. Normally, when I do editing on documents, not just redaction, but when I do any kind of thing, I have an original that maybe Heather sent me that I'm working on. I'm going to save a copy of that to go in and edit it myself. So I've always got the original that Heather sent me, and then I can work on the, save a copy of it and work on that document. So I've always got the original, and then, I can make other changes. And so that's kind of my habit, but I don't really have to do that here because when I save this, it automatically adds this underscore redacted to the name of the file. Okay, so that's a good thing. I'm actually not going to save this for the moment because what I want to do is sanitize the document, which is what I said I wasn't going to do. And the reason I want to go here is because I wanted to do this selectively. So I'll select that. And here we go. There's a couple things here that I don't really want to take out. One is metadata. And what we're talking about there is under the File menu, Properties. This is all metadata. So I probably don't want to remove the title. I probably don't want to remove the author or the subject and keywords too, because that could come into play later. And if I just say, okay, wipe out everything, it's going to take all of this out. The other reason I don't want to do metadata, well, I don't want to check metadata, but I also don't want to take out bookmarks. So this file actually does have a couple of bookmarks, but that's really good for navigation, and particularly when it goes on to court, being able to quickly access specific information from bookmarks, I think is important too. So I always turn that off as well. So I don't want to take out metadata and I don't want to take out bookmarks. Now, again, in your service, you might want to do something different than that. I'm just explaining typically how I work and giving you the option of how you would like to work. So once I've done that, I'll go ahead and remove, and yes, okay. And then I'd go ahead and save the document and we're good to go. Heather, do we have any questions?
We do have a few so far. One I would like to raise, because it was in relation to the work you're doing on the screen, is Stephen asks, is there any way we can override the cursor so it remains on free text redaction? I wasn't sure.
I'm not exactly sure what he means.
Do you want to add more to that comment in the chat, Stephen, if you're still with us?
Perhaps we go on to Mick in the meantime about how accurate is the mass redaction from a text.
Yep.
That's a really important point about the accuracy of the find.
Yep. And the one thing I did want, I was hoping Mick could further answer around, but hasn't yet, which is okay, is mass redact in terms of a word or a phrase would be slightly different than a mass chunk of varied content. So like if you took, 2,000 words and they vary, that's a different question than mass redaction of the same word or phrase. Clint, what are your thoughts on that? How accurate is find?
I found it to be quite accurate, but I also think that this doesn't avoid a human looking at this. So what I might do too is before I go ahead and apply the redactions, maybe I'm going to send this on to somebody else. Maybe I'm going to send this on to you, Heather or David, and have you check my work before I apply it. So if I do that, you can go ahead and redact some more. So I just mark for redaction, I save the file, I pass it along to other members of my team and have them go through it as well, and maybe add some redactions before those redactions are actually applied. And again, this going through mass words, I have not found any problems with it finding everything. But it still is worth it. This doesn't take away human eyes still kind of going through this just to be sure.
Mm-hmm.
And Clint, on that one, of course, if somebody types something wrong and put the typo in there, but you've only searched for the correct spelling, then it's not going to find it, is it?
Exactly.
So It's about the quality of the information that you put in there as much as it is about the tool itself.
Yeah,
it is.
And in a similar vein, in relation to the find, how does find approach different capitalizations within a word? So let's say we have Janet where J is capitalized and Janet where all of the text is capitalized.
And if we go back to multiple words, select the words, and we do have whole words only and case sensitive down here.
So in this case, does leave the user in control there.
Right. So Janet, capitalized or not, it's going to find it if Janet is on the list.
Wonderful. And that's because case sensitive is not checked, correct?
Correct.
Great.
Exactly.
There's another question in here about how well does it do with scanned images? So when there's words included in an image, is it able to find them, or is that where your manual check might come in?
Yes, well, a scanned image, what I would do first is go ahead and OCR it, optical character recognition. And that uses this tool. Let me get out of here. And I would recognize text in the document first, or in the case of my example, where I took out the entire page, I could have just drawn around the scans of the Social Security card and the discharge papers rather than blocking the whole thing out as well. So, you know, that becomes kind of a judgment call. Do I run around OCR on that page, or do I just want to take, you know, draw around it and take out the specific information that is a scan? So that depends on case by case situation.
One of the comments that's come in is there a different experience for a Mac user compared to the PC user?
As you can see, I am on a Mac, and no, there really isn't any difference. The tool looks the same.
Mm-hmm. I think the only difference would sometimes be the key commands that you use. So a Mac user would use slightly different key commands to do things, you know, like copy paste or to remove, to cut things like that, because Macs have a slightly different key variation for that. But other than that, it should work the same.
And certainly, I've when we were planning this, I just went away and played with the tools, and certainly found the user experience really simple. One thing I will encourage people in policing to make sure it's opening Acrobat DC, not just the reader. You know, I had to call my IT because something had gone wrong in the configuration of my machine, and found that I just needed to quickly get it reinstalled, and then it opened DC by default, which gave me access to all these tools. I've done a lot more, but in Reader, obviously, it wasn't allowing me to do that. Both tools are fully included in your license, so there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to use them at all, and that's a really important point. There is a question here, Clint, which is really interesting about, can we redact part of a phone number automatically? So if we've got a document that, say, 100 phone numbers in it, and we want to redact the middle 5 characters, for instance, is there a way of doing that, or is that something we'd have to do manually?
You'd have to do that manually.
So we've got some of the answers for you, but not answer for everything. But isn't that the way? We're moving that on. Yes, we will make the presentation. What we'll do is make the recording of this webinar available. And speaking to Clint and Heather, we're going to create a little knowledge centre on the PDS Knowledge Centre, the enabling centre, where we've got some mini clips that Adobe and Clint have actually created to take you through each of the different steps, because obviously the customization at the front is something you would less likely to use compared to some of the other functions, so we will make those available. There's a lot of questions coming in here, so Heather, do you want to pick a last couple and then we'll start wrapping up?
I think one great one is from Siobhan, which is, will the pattern redaction work on scanned images?
Not without OCRing.
So there you go. Another comment was, when sanitizing, a few folks have noted that it removes parts of text, especially in PDFs that contain converted emails. Do we have any thoughts on that? And if not, we can come back.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one, exactly what is meant.
No problem. Jem, what I can do is I'll put my email in the chat, and then you can send me a further email about that so we can dig into that for you. Let's see if there's any others.
Can I just jump in here with a couple of other things?
Yeah,
real quick. So one of the things I wanted to point out too is I created a redaction action that will go through and let me get out of here and go to the action wizard. And what this will do is it will search for text, so I can put those words in my word list. I can add that, and then it'll mark it for redaction. It will actually create a summary of everything that you redacted as a separate PDF. And then it removes that hidden information that I showed you and saves it. So this will step you through it much quicker. And I've made this available as well. It's a sequence file, an SEQU file that you can add to your version of Acrobat that will save you time walking through all of this. So it's available.
I was really going to ask you about that one as my final point to you, because I went through the accessibility workflow yesterday with a load of colleagues from police communications, and they were amazed at the way it does. And these are things that a force or a department might want to set up and create their own workflows for very similar documents, isn't it? Yeah,
Yes.
so this is a really powerful tool. Once you get used to the basic functionality of how to do the OCR, you could include OCR in this sort of thing, all those steps in the process, and you could even include that, refer to a colleague for a second proof of it. That's the sort of thing that you can build in this platform and then apply across your department or your team to make it become a really valuable tool towards it all.
Yep.
And easily share it with others. So you make it, you export it, they get this SEQU file, they import it, and then they've got it. So it works for a team. It's not a one by one, everybody has to do this. One person does it, everybody else can take advantage of that as well.
And that's an ideal point to reference the PDS solutions catalog, which I saw the latest iteration of that yesterday, and it looks fantastic. That's again is something that if you work in, say, in a freedom of information team in a force, and you create a workflow like this, and you think your colleagues and other forces would welcome it, then send it through to us, and we'll share it through the PDS solutions catalog, because that's how we can all collaborate and work together. I'm just going to we're getting close to the bottom of the hour now. Heather, if you
Can I
got
ask one or two quick more?
Yeah.
They're short. So Charlotte asks if CPS returns a document for further redaction, can the force further redact that same document and apply more?
They can, yes.
Great. And just for your knowledge, for everyone, CPS also uses Acrobat Pro DC. They're one of my other customers, so they should be on the same product as you, which is good to know. And then in terms of patterns, you're correct. Obviously, Clint and I know you guys don't use social security numbers, so you use national insurance numbers. Clint, do we know if there's a pattern for national insurance numbers that the folks can use?
Yes, there is.
And that you should be able to find where?
That's under the preferences.
Great.
Acrobat preferences. And well, let's respond to that because it's going to take me a minute to find it. The other point I quickly wanted to make was another document that I prepared and is available to you folks too, that covers kind of everything here as well. So a quick summary of this document that I'm spinning through here too covers everything that I just talked about as well. So that's going to be available to you too.
And Clint, thank you for that. What we're going to do is when we finish this recording, it'll take us a couple of days just to do the edit because I've got other commitments on it at the moment, and we'll get this up onto the PDS YouTube account and onto the website, but then we'll build a little section in the PDS Enabling Centre, which is available to all policing. You just need to be a guest in the PDS account. And if you go on the Contact Us page, if you want to get in touch, we'll refer those details through to you. We'll get that onto screen for you so you can get in. Or if you visit the PDS website and go to the Solutions Catalogue, you can request access through that page as well to be able to get in there. But we'll create a little resource for this because we know the interest in today's webinar has been phenomenal. We do these webinars every Wednesday at midday. Next week, we're going to be looking at what's going to become the next steps around Microsoft 365. And then what we've got is Microsoft joining us in a couple of weeks' time to do a little work about what the roadmap of 365 is looking like and what we can expect to be able to use in policing. We always try and make these as contextualised towards the policing job, whether it's police staff, police officers, volunteers, those people who are working to help keep our communities safe. That's why we aim the content to be there. So please head over to the PDS website to get more information. If you've got anything you'd like to follow up, you're unsure if you've got access to this in policing, you've got the QR code on screen now. You've got the website form that comes through to us, and we actually use workflows in our team as well to make sure this all managed through, and we can get in touch with you and get your answers back. Connect you up with Heather if you need any help, and share that information on. We do try and keep these down to as short as possible, and we know you've been phenomenal in watching. We've had so many questions. We'll carry on answering a few more questions as we carry on through the day, but we'll make more of this available. So thank you all for joining us. Thanks to Heather and Clint from joining us today. We want to see you at our next webinars. Please keep in touch, subscribe to our mailing list, and you can get up to date on all the things that are going on. And remember, there's 88 webinar recordings available for you to go back to. So if ever you're bored and you want half an hour to learn something, I really recommend the Top Tips webinar. You will save hours of work. But thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you soon.
Great.